What do I want to watch? Got away with the mess team. There's Gundam Thunderbolt. What's this? MS Saga. More like MS Nod. Guy. Take Thunderbolt. Fine, I'll review it. MS Saga: A New Dawn was developed by BEC and published by Bandai. I've covered how the early 2000s saw the US getting all kinds of Gundam games, from fighting games to third-person mech shooters. However, there was a seeming lack of RPGs tied with the Gundam franchise. Or at least I thought that was the case, until I found out about MS Saga: A New Dawn. The story opens up with our protagonist, Tristan, or as I've named him, Gundam! Stealing a mobile suit from an abandoned base. He and his friend Fritz do this in an attempt to get revenge on a mysterious organization known as the Dark Alliance for burning down their orphanage. And look at these character designs. These colors and outfits are things that could only come from an early 2000s video game.
No way! We gotta get out of here! Now!
Anyway, Prince Heterochromia here sets out in a search for these mysterious soldiers. Their quest will lead them to getting involved with a unionized organization known as the Unicorns. This also leads to a chance encounter with a strange girl known as Aeon. She seems perfectly normal except she feels things differently than others. I'm not saying she's a new type, but, well, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. Meeting more friends and working with the Unicorns gets them closer and closer to facing the, and I quote, 4 generals of the Dark Alliance. Seriously, I can't make this up. It will soon become apparent to you that this game suffers from generic RPG storytelling. The 4 generals of the Dark Alliance, are you kidding me? This all takes place after a time known as the Great Fall. A time where humanity is in a state of recovery and somehow, somewhere, takes place after the UC era of Gundam? I cannot believe they tried to tie this in with the biggest era of Gundam history. But here we are. Is this it, Amuro? Is this what your sacrifice was for? No. No, I think not. Brushing the writing aside, let's talk about the combat, which is pretty standard but also pretty fun. It's your typical turn-based strategy mixed with some interesting features. You can use the weapons your mobile suit is equipped with, and your attacks range into 2 different categories, melee or ranged attacks. A melee attack is usually an attack with a handed weapon, which does a bit more damage but also leaves you open to a counterattack, whereas ranged uses a, you guessed it, ranged weapon, to deal less damage but at a safer distance. Each turn that passes an attack you use sees you using some AP energy from each character's respective gauge. Some attacks cost a few levels of energy, whereas others don't cost any, and you always gain the energy back each turn. Storing up enough energy will allow the player to perform boost abilities that are unique to each pilot. These can range anywhere from defensive techniques to multi-enemy attacks that can deal some strong damage. Some of these abilities let you pick the weapon in your arsenal, further affecting the damage you're doing. Each individual pilot can also learn techniques. These don't take away from your energy gauge, however. These abilities take from the pilot's tech points, which can be compared to skill points or magic points in any other RPG. These little features help to keep the fights fresh, as well as strategic when facing stronger enemies and bosses. If you're well versed in Gundam lore, or even just a casual fan, chances are you'll recognize some of the mobile suits that you can acquire like the Zaku 1 and 2, the GM, and the Gauth. But the further you progress, the more iconic Gundams and mobile suits become. So you can play as some of your favorite suits from across the Gundam universe. While the hunt for these parts can be rewarding, the big draw is from the customization. It wasn't supposed to be this way. I'm so sorry. Oh god. No. How could something like this exist? So awful. Oh god, no. Look at it. It's horrible. You want a mobile suit with janked up human arms and a claw? done. You want shields, a cannon, and a smaller side gun? Go for it. The customization is pretty great. Being able to fuse all your favorite mobile suit's key featured parts, all mishmashed together in a perfect nightmare. Seriously, the amount of encounters you can have to gain potential suit parts is insane. This is one of my favorite features of MS Saga. Having the ability to create your own custom suits toppled with a choice of making some of your favorite mobile suits and Gundams is just icing on the robotic cake. Not to mention adding in custom colors to give your creation a more unique look that fits everyone's aesthetic. I'm pretty fond of mixing purples myself. Yeah, that looks good. With all the customization available to your suits, it's pretty easy to want to collect all kinds of suits and give them your own unique touch. This comes as one of the more enjoyable features of this game, which is kind of sad to say since everything else is pretty subpar. As far as the storytelling goes, it's pretty lackluster. The game generally consists of you running to the nearest unicorn base, them telling you what the next problem is and where to go deal with it. The dungeons, if you can call them that, are relatively short and usually just contain a few screens and hallways before running into the big enemy. None of the areas are particularly memorable either, and some places are really just one big area with a lot of fighting. It all comes off as being uninspired and pretty disappointing overall. You won't suffer from lack of encounters though. Each dungeon and even the open world will have you facing a variety of suits, and they even have the chance of encounter radar in the top screen. I really like that idea. But there's almost no pacing to it. The indications should go from blue to yellow to red, but sometimes it's just a straight up jump from blue to an encounter, and it kind of defeats the purpose. The development between characters, if any, is pretty basic at best. You'll get to learn more about each character as you go from town to town, but it's all pretty much a small scripted segment with minimal dialogue. The effort is there, but it's nothing that particularly feels worth the trouble. And it's not like the characters are even dull. You can gather that Fritz favors receiving money for his efforts because he had a poor upbringing. But it's not something that really grips you. The development is there, but the emotion in each scene is not. Heart is usually what Gundam is all about. Well, that and giant mech battles. But if it weren't for the iconic mobile suits all over the place, I would never even think of this game being related to Gundam in the first place. They even keep to the original idea of children having to do the fighting to make a point about the harsh realities of war. But beyond that, I just don't see anything. The art style is pretty nice. Rather than going into the Gundam SD format that Gundam is known for, they instead decided to just scale down the models of the mobile suits to look smaller, but pretty much the same. And I like that. I would prefer a more realistic scale of the mobile suits, but considering the art direction the game took, I could see a stark contrast between a scaled down, minimal world housing these fully realized mobile suits. Scaling them down was the better option, but not enough for the cutesy SD art style. The music is pretty good, but kind of has that feeling of desperately wanting to be a Final Fantasy title when it clearly isn't. I will give props to the game for including those classic Gundam sound effects. Man, I cannot get enough of them. I'm listing a lot more cons than pros with this game, but I don't really think it's a bad game. Rather, it's just a mediocre installment in a rather large franchise. Some ideas of this product are pretty interesting, but the whole thing comes off as pretty uninspired, which is disappointing considering the few RPGs centered around Gundam. And it's not like you can't have fun with this game, it's a pretty enjoyable experience, and even someone who doesn't follow Gundam in the slightest could have fun with it. It's just not something that will really stand out to you. And considering the price range of this game at the time of this video's release, there are really just better options out there. Like, I'm not saying get Legend of Dragoon for half the price, but the option is out there. Thanks for watching. Maybe MS Saga wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But who knows, maybe one day I'll come back to this and see if I missed something. In the meantime, I'm going to Japan. See you guys next month. I'm just gonna... Did you play MS Saga back in the day? What did you think of its overall experience? Let me know down in the comments, and if you like this video, leave a like and consider subscribing. As always, keep it practical.